Well, hey everybody. This is the gang. I'm Brett, and we've got Jen, my beautiful best half, Jen White, and Jen and I guess, we've been working and leading at Kingsway for over 20 years, and at the moment we sort of sit in an oversight role of what Kingsway is doing as a group of churches. And maybe for you, you're part of one of the campuses. We have two in Sydney and one in Cambodia. And we just thought it would be good just to have a bit of a candid conversation around how important it is for us to be connected, what that means for each of us. And so we've got Dave Standen, who leads our Caringbah campus, waving to you there. And we have Brook Stewart, who's smiling with a clappy hands. Yeah, good on you. And we have Phanet, who is from our Phnom Penh campus in Cambodia. So I'm just going to throw around the room, get them to sort of introduce and just just briefly share, what it is about being part of this group of churches as opposed to being on our own, and why that's important and the value that we see in that. So I'm going to throw to Brook first, and give us your thoughts.
Thanks, Brett. I suppose history has a lot to do with it. I mean, I've been part of the Kingsway family for a long time, 20-something years, and Seechange essentially came out of the vision and heart of Kingsway Churches in order to, I suppose, reach our local community. I remember when we first started, it was almost like a conversation that we had that we wanted to, I suppose, spread the influence of our impact in our area. And, we really feel like that Seechange is part of the Caringbah Kingsway family. And so that was an important part of the journey. And now, obviously, relationships are really important. So I think for me, the history of how it started, but also the relationships that we have. I mean, we've all journeyed together for a long time. The family narrative, I suppose, has been really important. And I think even though, when you're family, even though like our own kids move out of home, there's still a really strong, I suppose, connection that you have, both, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And so all those things. So I think that, I don't think you ever really break away from family. I think, unfortunately, you're stuck with each other. So I feel like that's part of, I suppose, the narrative which we work from is really a family system. And that's great, because I think that as part of that family, I think we're supportive of each other. I remember when I was first trying to figure out what this looked like, I remember driving in the car, I started singing the U2 song One. We're one, but we're not the same, but we carry each other. And for me, that really explained, a little bit about, I suppose, the unity we have, but also the diversity that we have, in the sense that, we're very different. We're not trying to be clones of each other, but we're really interconnected in regard to, our heart and our values and what we want to see for God's kingdom to expand. And so we have a real kindred spirit that I don't want to lose. And I actually think it creates a lot of, I suppose, a lot of encouragement and passion, and I don't know, just a lot of momentum, I suppose, because you don't feel like you're on your own. You're part of something bigger. I think the temptation is when you church plant, and that would be my experience, is that you want to sort of set your own agenda and set your own pace. But I think that it's really taught me that there's real value in being part of something where you can be supported, and where I think I said to you recently, Brett, I think the great thing is that we share not only our joys, but we also share our struggles. And so, we get to experience the testimony of what God's doing in a bigger picture. But also the great thing is that, when we're going through tough times and we're just trying to navigate some tough situations, we don't feel fully responsible to sort it out ourselves. It's sort of almost a collaborative approach to sort out, to navigate the future, whatever that may bring. And I think I think we're just better together. And yeah, I think isolation is death. I've seen many people get in situations where they feel really isolated and alone. And I think the gift of being part of the Kingsway Church family is that essentially that never happens. We're never alone in this. We're never isolated. We're part of a common vision, a common set of values. And yeah, it's an exciting, as I said, family to be a part of.
Yes, good. I think one of the unique things about it is that, we have three very unique churches, Seechange Church, Caringbah, Kingsway, and Kingsway, Cambodia, Phnom Penh, all very unique, all kind of serving their own local areas, developing their own mission and strategies around what that looks like for them, leading their own teams. And so there is I think we're not sort of punking out these kind of, models where we look the same in every place that we go. We look different, and we, I guess, do mission differently in the context that we're in, which I think is, really exciting. I'd love to hear from you, Phanet. I guess our youngest church, but also our church in Cambodia, and just your experience and the value that you see of being part of Kingsway.
Yes, sure. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I think it is really important to us here. I mean, even we feel like physically apart from Kingsways in Sydney is, but really like with the spiritual support and mentality support that we are receiving from there, it is really important to us, because during these times of pandemic, which is really telling us very clear how it is important to be one part of the family. You never want to be alone, because since we start joining with Kingsway, which was when after my wife and I we got married, and we have this encounters and meeting with Brad when he was in Cambodia, and we were talking about how the Lord wanting to lead us and call us into peace, and how He matched our visions and calling toward what God has mentioned to Brad for many years before we met him. And this is really amazing how God kind of connected us together, and being part of Kingsway's families, which is not just make us feel special, but this is really like make us feel so honored to be part of these families and communities, especially like knowing the heart of the leadership team that Kingsway is having, even in Caringbah or Seechange that we have met once, and some other many times, like Brad, I met many times with him, but like Brook and Dave, I met you there, and I just felt the Lord have put us into these puzzles to do the work together, and we are matching very well with this, even like a sense of humor that we got, and many other areas that how we want to serve the ministries and especially the community. We just not focusing on where the buildings of the church is, not just focusing on like what numbers we're going to have at church, but we're focusing on what God is calling us to do and to reach out to the community where we are called to be in. And this is really inspires and encouraged. Since after we return back, we kind of knowing like return back from Sydney, that last time we were there, we really like inspired and encouraged to continue the work, because we felt we are on the right spot with the right family. It doesn't mean that different church is not important, but we are in this groups of people where God places us as one family to serve this part, and we are matching very well to do this together. And that's really really inspired and encouraged me to move on as the families here to do what we are doing here, because we feel we are not alone, and to get this support from one another throughout the whole years we were together. It is not easy, but anyway, we just know that God is calling us into the right place and the right things that we are doing for his kingdom here together. And that's what made me feel very important, feel very honored, and feel very special to be part of you guys as Kingsway's family.
Yeah, it's great, Phanet, and we really do miss being able to be there and seeing you and working alongside you, and look forward to connecting with you down the track. I think Dave has just begun, I guess, his journey as leading one of our churches, although he's been a part of Kingsway for a long time as well. Just love to hear a few thoughts from you, Dave.
Yeah, I guess I'll lead with a story, if that's okay. Just recently, we went on a road trip, and there was two cars, two very different cars. And for the sake of the metaphor, maybe envisage 3 cars on this road trip, and each car had was very different shape, different size, different amount of people in the car. They had different capacities. They played different songs along the way. They had different drivers. There was a different smell about each car. You kind of get where this is going, right? What we had in common, though, was a common sense of direction. There was alignment in the end goal of where we were going to end up. There was agreement around the kinds of ways that we were going to travel together. And for me, that's very representative of the power of an aligned church, is that there are 3 very distinct and different vehicles that God is using to achieve his goal through our group of churches at Kingsway. We each have different capacities. We're different sizes. We're different shapes. You know, we look different. We sound different. We smell different. However, there is such strong alignment around the cultural pieces of who we are and the DNA of what God instilled in what has been a church that has been going for 70 plus years. Don't forget that Kingsway as a church began in 1947. The DNA of what God birthed in the church then has very much continued on to this day. And the alignment across the 3 vehicles, being the 3 churches, in my opinion, is incredibly strong. And the alignment around where we are going and who we are is making for a pretty incredible road trip, if you ask me. It has its ups, it has its downs. We get lost at times. But the power of it is that we are there to realign one another. If one goes down the wrong road or is unsure, then there's, where we're going together draws each other along. As I think Brook said, that sense of momentum. And partner with that, I'd echo Brook as well, is that diversity in God's kingdom is a powerful witness, that who we are as distinct yet interdependent with Cambodia, and who we are as very similar but very distinct to who Seechange is again a way of us painting the great and diverse picture of what God's kingdom is like. However limited that might be, still in its diversity, we are on display to the world of the diversity of the fact that God has called everyone of all nations and all tongues and all tribes and all ways and kinds of lives together to worship him. And we have a beautiful picture of that across our 3 churches. And that alignment and that diversity for me is incredible to be a part of and to have seen nurtured through Brett and Jen over the last 20 odd years.
It's good. Love to hear from you, Jen. I guess obviously we've walked this journey together, seeing what God has done relationally through these guys, what perspectives have you got kind of in that reflection space?
I think a lot of it's already been said. I think from my perspective, there is a wider number of people that have carried the vision of Caringbah. It's not just who you see on the screen now. There is a core group of people in Cambodia and Seechange and Caringbah that we've journeyed with for a lot of years. And so we've just taken risks, and I think that has been, fueled by our passion to love God and love others. We've done that well at different times. It's been challenging at other times, but I think what has been really beautiful, I think, about Kingsway and being part of a wider family is that we've been through a lot of life together in 20 years, and in ministry that's not always easy. And I think the testimony is the fact that we genuinely love one another. We have good times, but we have challenging times, but we also have a lot of laughs along the way. So there's a lot of joy that we've shared over the years as well. We've seen incredible miracles of God. We've cried together. We've been on our knees together. And I think really in its most simplistic form, I think we all carry the same vision, that we're not, whilst of course we want to see Kingsway continue to grow in health, in honor of God, and that God has for Kingsway, I think we're kingdom focused, so releasing what God's doing, chasing down what God's doing, discerning what God's doing, and I think being bold enough and courageous enough to take risks and to chase that down, and to do that together when we're feeling scared out of our wits, stepping into faith, stepping into the unknown, and being there to pick each other up when it maybe doesn't turn out the way that we had thought, but God's been faithful. And I think it's the testimony of not our brilliance, but God's brilliance and what God has done through our lives over many years. And I think it's a testimony to the fact that, genuinely across all of our teams, there's a great deep sense of unity and love for one another. And I think that's a gift from God. And so I think those elements to me are the key things that is what makes Kingsway unique and special, and what continues to make me feel so grateful, because I genuinely love the people I work and minister alongside. They're not just colleagues. We're in there together for the long haul. And so I think that's been a great strength.
That's good. I think, one of the amazing things that we might be 3 different churches in 3 different locations in 2 different parts of the world, but we do carry this DNA, I guess, that, the family, the blood in the family that keeps us together. It's like, it is amazing that when I walk into Seechange or Caringbah, or even when I walk into Phnom Penh, there is a sense of similarity around heart and focus and DNA, which I think is quite brilliantly unique. So yeah, any kind of final little comments from anyone in the room?
Yeah, but I was just going to say, I think people might ask, what does it mean? What denomination are a part of, and some of that, the differences between what, we're obviously part of Churches of Christ, New South Wales, and Fresh Hope and that kind of thing. But I think the major difference between what we're trying to create is that form of relationship, where there's a sense of intimacy in what we do that keeps each other accountable and connected. But even though we've had a history of that relationship, that doesn't mean that we're closed to, building other relationships in the future with people that want to come on the journey of relationship and connection. But there is a sense of, intimacy, I suppose, and relationship with, with each other that may cause a sense of vulnerability as well, which we encourage. And so I think that there's a major difference between, I suppose, what we're doing as a Kingsway Churches group versus what a denominational do, because you're often, denominations offers, covers a whole, normally a whole nation or a whole state, where you're not necessarily connected to the people you're journeying with, even though, and I think that interconnectedness and collaboration that we have is quite unique and quite special. The other thing I'd say is, I think what Phanet said too, like, we have the privilege of actually serving our community together and, and partnering together. I mean, we have some great projects together where we really do serve the poor and the vulnerable in our community. And I think that that's something we're really passionate about as a community, that we exist primarily to serve people outside of ourselves. Right. And that is something that we all hold pretty strongly in our hearts and in our vision. And I think that's something that when people become part of us, that's probably something that we feel is really important moving forward as well.
I also was just thinking about the fact too, Brook, I think that, the ministry at Kingsway is unfolded. If you would have told me in my early, or my mid-20s when we stepped into this role, what would unfold, I don't think I could have really dreamt it. So I think we've also chased what the Holy Spirit has opened up and what the Lord has opened up. And I would imagine as we continue to grow together, that the Lord will open up fresh opportunities and new opportunities as we continue to serve the community. Like, I don't know really where the Lord will lead us, but I think the testimony is that we could honestly say that, and we trust that God has led the steps that we've stepped into. So I think that's another area that I was just thinking about too, Bretto.
I think the loving spirit as a family, it is really, the sense that I can feel very strongly in this like communities, like this church communities as Kingsways, because we are not just a church where we get all like the positions lining up and telling the directions what to do, but instead we more like allowing the members of the families to get connected directly to the Lord and practice what the Lord is calling us to do. And for these families, what I can feel very strongly as well is like how every single one of us as the leaders of Kingsways in different campers, we really like focusing on like the needs of the communities instead of building our own kingdoms as a Kingsway church, but we are always looking around for people who living around us or passing by us, how we can help, how we can support, how we can really being part of the experience in their life that we can bring the Holy Spirit to them. And that's that really like something I really love about these communities.
Great. Thanks, Phanet.
If I can add something there, Brett, I think something that I think is really powerful in all of that is that the benefit of us being all together in that journey of serving our communities and working this out as we go is that, and I think you and Jen have done a great job of facilitating this, is that from a leadership perspective, there is a community of learning that takes place. When we gather together for conversations like this, or whether it's on our staff retreats, there's a learning environment that isn't around learning how to do the next best thing, but a learning environment that's shaped around discerning what God is doing in this given moment. And we have the uniqueness is that we're not just articulating what we sense Holy Spirit doing through one community, but multiple. And I think that there's a greater level of understanding of who God is and what he's up to in the world when we can be in a community of learning, discerning God's voice together helps us do all of those things better. So we're not about importing the model of what's working in Cambodia at the moment, or copy and pasting what's happening in Janali and through Seechange to Caringbah and expecting that to change. But the learnings that we have and share together as we learn to discern God's voice has been so transformational over the last And I'd probably say in particular the last 5 years, as that's become a keynote part of our leadership community, of giving ourselves to that journey of transformation as God is at work among us, has been so pivotal in, I think, even seeing the health and the growth of what God's doing in each 3 locations. And it's just such a unique fingerprint of the Kingsway churches that I think is really healthy, and it's great.
That's good. It's some great little insights, and we obviously, we could probably sit here and chat all day, which would be great for us, but for people watching, may get a little bit bored after a while. But it's good to have an opportunity, I guess, for us to have that conversation together, but also to be able to get that conversation out there so that people hear a little bit more about, I guess, who we are as 3 very unique churches, but also who we are as one, which I think is really exciting. It's great to, I guess, for some people, to introduce you to Phanet, who leads Cambodia alongside his wife, Shrek Blake, and their kids, and Brook and Tam and Dave and Elise at Caringbah. And so thanks for hanging out. And if you have questions, you'd love to hear more, we'd love to talk and connect with you. It's been great to introduce you to the wider group of churches that are a part of who we are as Kingsway. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you